So now let's come to another important topic. Let's go back now. Some of you were on our stream where we talked about Kurds. Let's again talk about Kurds once more and look into what's going on now, what the topic is now, like how things are developing, and also what Kurds are saying themselves. And we'll now go to the PUK leader, that's Talabani, who's out of Suleimania in the Kurdistan Regional Government of Northern Iraq. So let's take a look here. Let's share this, open this up.
President of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, the PUK. Mr. Talabani, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's first start big picture and paint the picture from where you sit of what you see with this war in Iran and what you think the implications are of it as it exists now.
We saw the hostilities start surprisingly, and it seems to be a massive escalation across all fronts. Kurdistan has come under attack from several different angles, and I'm not seeing any sign of a slowdown. If anything, I'm seeing an escalation.
So the U.S. is working on taking out missile sites and drone factories and that sort of thing. But as far as groups on the ground fighting the Iranians, this reporting that thousands of Iranian Kurds are preparing for this operation, where does that stand?
There are a lot of Iranian Kurds that deserve dignity, and they deserve perhaps better treatment. But as for any actual preparation and armed Kurds inside Iran, there are elements, and there's lots of political organization. But most of the most effective fighting forces are actually outside of Iran. They're on the borders here.
You had a conversation with President Trump. What was that like?
He was very charming. He was very kind. I could feel the emotion in his voice. He said that the Kurds were great fighters. My understanding is that the protection of their people in Iraq is paramount. He's very grateful for all the years that we have served and I have spent with your special forces.
You also talked to the Iranian foreign minister.
Yes.
What is their take on things from your call? Do you believe that regime change is possible the way it's heading right now?
The foreign minister, His Excellency, expressed great disappointment, if I'm honest with you. He indicated that as far as they were concerned, the talks were going well. He implied that a technical group was supposed to sit together in the upcoming days to discuss technical matters. He indicated that this wasn't a war that they were looking forward to, but it was a war they would have to fight. It's definitely existential to them. I got the impression that they were open to some form of peaceful negotiation, which realistically is the only real solution to this issue. Regime change at the moment doesn't look on the cards from what I see. We've seen no uprisings anywhere. We've seen nothing of that. But it's early days. I expect this operation to be long and very difficult.
You think there are difficult days ahead. The president is suggesting that he would only accept unconditional surrender, in his words, to a reporter. So you don't see that right now, that this is on the cusp of happening?
I don't, sir. No, I don't see that right now. I think that the regime has been planning for this for 45 years, and you can expect a fierce resistance. The definition of regime change is important. What is the definition of regime change? And is there an off-ramp? Because some could argue that most mission parameters have been achieved. So is there an off-ramp where now perhaps we can try to resolve this diplomatically?
Yeah, I think that from the administration, at least listening to them, taking out the ballistic missile capability, making sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, was the original objective going in.
Exactly.
The Israelis clearly are more wanting specific regime change to get a different leader in place that the U.S. and Israel can work with.
I understand that. And I think that, Mr. Baer, the conditions, I keep hearing the comparisons to 2003. I think the conditions are very different to 2003. In 2003, there was legitimate, well-known, respected opposition to Saddam among the Shiites, among the Kurds, and don't really see that in Iran now. There isn't a standard, a symbol for people to follow, and that will make it very difficult. Troops on the ground with a country the size of Western Europe, I'm not sure if that's feasible either, but there are many options, and I think the US administration is wise enough to modify their position as the battle changes and as the battlefield changes.
Just to be clear, so there's no armed cross-border operation happening now from your territory in Iraq involving Iranian Kurds into Iran?
Not that I see, and you could argue that that's actually a detriment. The Iranians, like everybody else, are very a nationalistic person, and I believe that if they fear that Kurds coming in from elsewhere will cause a split or a splintering of their country, this may actually unify the people and against this separatist movement. Then you have the complications of Turkey. Turkey will have legitimate concerns of this happening. You will have Turkish intervention against the Kurdish troops. At the same time, there is a problem with the Azeris. I think it's a very complicated scenario, and perhaps Kurds being tip of the spear is not the way to go.
Yeah. There are many minorities, you're right, in Iran, and it's very complex as far as how it comes together. If you were to look into a crystal ball, how do you think this ends?
I think that Kurdistan needs to be a bridge, not a battlefield. And the Kurds are uniquely positioned as being your great allies and a partner and a neighbor of Iran. I think we're uniquely positioned to play a role in de-escalation when the time is appropriate, like my late father used to play that role. But what I see now, from what I'm seeing, is a weakened Iranian system, but the institutions, though very different to ours, are institutions and they remain solid. I think that once military objectives are achieved, I dare say that it will be the time for diplomacy. And at that time, we stand ready, as always, to stand with our friends and allies to try to bring stability, peace, and prosperity to this region that truly has suffered from far too many wars and far too many conflicts.
Dealing with the drone threat from Iran, because that's what we're seeing most in some of these Gulf countries.
Yes.
Are you worried about attacks and how to defend against those drone attacks that come in swarms?
Not to sound flippant, so it's not our first rodeo, and we have absolutely no defense against any drones. So I think the less time spent worrying about it, the better.
Yeah, I got you. And the U.S. is attempting to deal with all of those threats together. It's very interesting to hear your perspective. If you were to say the thing you're most worried about, what is it?
The humanitarian crisis. I think the people of the Middle East have suffered enough, and I urge all sides to try to look at a less bloody way to resolve our issues. I understand that, and I genuinely believe that Mr. Trump in his heart wants peace, and I understand the theory of peace through strength. And I also think that when the day comes to acknowledge victory, there will be grace in that victory, and we may be able to have dialogue, and we may be able to resolve this issue through the only way that will make a long-lasting peace, and that's dialogue, stability, peace.
Yeah. Well, fascinating to talk to you from the region. Balfil Talabani, the head of the PUK. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure.
So very, very, very interesting. And I see some of you in the chat as I was watching while you were going. Very astute observations. Not only the boring aspect and, Epstein News Network and, kind of just monotonous word salad of this. But if you look in more closely, some of you rightfully understood what was going on. Number one, Talabani's area of Iraq is Suleimania region. It borders Iran. His father, which I will show you a picture now, because now is a good opportunity to do some great, hold on. Let's see if I can find it here. Yes. All right. So this is a very, very, very interesting picture that I put on X 6 years ago in 2020 when I found it. But this is a picture. This is a picture of Talabani. So for all, actually, let me put my cursor over here. And I don't know, can you see my cursor? Maybe. Let me see. Hold on. I have to adjust all these screens on my small computer here. Can you see? No, can't see the cursor. Okay, never mind. So the guy with the suit is that guy's father. That's Talabani. That's the elder Talabani. He was the leader of the PUK. He was the leader of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, which was founded by a lot of people who were involved in the Republic of Mahabad. Republic of Mahabad, as some of you know who listened to our stream, was the only ever Kurdish state to exist. It was a de facto Soviet state, like satellite state, and it was a socialist one, and it lasted from 47 to 48 or so, and then disappeared. So yeah, so this is Bafel Talabani's father, Jalal Talabani. Next to him, the guy with the almost a sweater there, the sweater and the sandals, is none other than, does anybody know? Anyone want to put in the chat who they think that could be? I'll wait and see if anybody... The picture actually is not in Iraq. The picture is in another country. And you can tell if you look closely. Anyone, any ideas? Any idea? No, not my dad. Not my dad. Not in Iran. Nope. Not Jolani. Yes, it's in Syria. How do you know it's in Syria? Because the picture above his head is Bashar's father, Hafiz al-Assad. This picture is in Damascus. But the question, so we have Hafiz al-Assad up there on the wall, a picture. Yes, it's very good. Somebody got it. Nikolai, good work. That is Abdullah Öcalan, the founder and the leader and still leader of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK. So look in this picture. This picture has simultaneously Hafiz al-Assad, Öcalan, and Talabani meeting because they were both left-wing Kurdish parties that were backed by Moscow, give or take. And both of them were in Damascus. Because Hafiz al-Assad gave Öcalan refuge there because Assad was also against Turkey, which was a NATO country. So it was also part of a proxy war between Syria and Turkey. Don't forget, Syria had irredentist claims to territory that Turkey had stolen after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. So this was part of their hybrid war against Turkey. It not only was irredentist claims, it was also a NATO power. And so in that way, it was the enemy. So this is very, very, very interesting because you get to see a little bit of the trajectory ideologically of the region. Now imagine at this picture's taking, the PKK had fought on the side of the Palestinians already and had martyrs. Many of you don't know. The PKK's training, their initial training for the first decade or so of their formation was done in coordination with Palestinian liberation groups, the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the DFLP, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and Abu Nidal's network, which was even more you could say, militant Palestinian organization. So that's very interesting. And there's a lot of very interesting stories of PKK fighters also training alongside IRA members, Gaddafi's people, Sandinistas from Nicaragua. There were other internationals who came from all over the world. So, and of course, they fought on the battlefield. That's why many of you, we should always be careful of monolithic understandings. Within the Kurdish liberation struggle, there is a section of Kurds that are anti-Arab, but there's a section of Kurds that have fought and died for Palestinians. So there's a big separation. And so it's important to understand that history. There's a portion of Kurds who are pro-Russia, pro-China. There's a portion of Kurds who are pro-West, but it's not monolithic. because the Kurds themselves are not monolithic either. All these groups and perspectives and ideologies and ideas and tribes and religions and, everything like that. So that's important to note. So what's interesting is Talabani would end up becoming president of Iraq after the invasion for a period of time. And his PUK, the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, is still considered left-wing, more or less. It's really a centrist party now. And it has a very close relationship with Iran because it wants to maintain good ties, and also because historically, Iran and the PUK see eye to eye on anti-imperialist issues. Because if the PUK is left-wing and supporting Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua and South Africa and in the anti-apartheid struggle and all these things, Iran also was doing the same, right? That's what people don't understand. Iran was also struggling at the same time, supporting liberation in Angola, Namibia, South Africa, Western Sahara, in Latin America, all over. So it's very, very important to understand that and to really grasp the deeper points. Now, you saw from Talabani's talk, they don't want to get involved because they have two scenarios. Number one, they have the scenario where the Turks get involved, which they're already in Iraq. So that would be no good for them. And the second scenario is that Iran gets involved even more so and begins to destroy a lot of the things that they built up in Kurdistan regional government since the first Gulf War. So that's not very good for them. And they don't want that. I mean, you have the Talabani family and the PUK in Suleimania. You have the Barzani family in Erbil. So they don't want to jeopardize their balance of powers. Also, some Kurdish nationalists in the KRG in northern Iraq do not recognize Kurdish self-determination in the other 3 parts or 4 parts, depending on how you look at it, of so-called Kurdistan, right? They say, no, we're the only Kurdish separate area. There's a Kurdish region. There's a Kurdish state in Iran. It's called Kurdistan. It's a state with the name Kurdistan, but it's not an autonomous region. It's part of the federal Islamic Republic. And they say, no, we don't recognize anybody else's aspirations for nationhood, only our nationhood, only Kurdistan and regional government, only northern Iraq. So that's very interesting as well. All right. So we've gone through that. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to take us down on another interesting thing. So I want to bring this back up because I think it's very, very, very important for us to really understand and grasp it. All right. We're back. Right? So just look. Let me maximize this. Okay, there we go. Can everyone still hear me? I hope everyone can still hear me. Now I think I solved the problem. I just maximize this and I keep my volume on. So you can see on this map, the diversity, the enormous diversity of Iran, and especially the diversity in what we would call the frontier, the periphery of Iran. So the central part of Iran is mostly inhabited by the majority Persian ethnicity. And then the regional areas or the sort of provincial areas, the frontier areas have minorities. So you can see starting at the top here, right? You see here, for example, these are Azeris, right? So Azerbaijan historically, or the Azeri people had, they were all part of the Safavid and then later the Qajar dynasty. And then there was a war with Russia, and Russia took a lot of this territory in the Caucasus, and it went back and forth, and eventually the modern borders were created. So most Azeri people live in Iran. Azerbaijan is a state for Azeri people that was a creation later on of the Soviet Union. So there's a question about Azeri separatism. Although, fun fact, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei comes from an Azeri background as well. So that's very interesting to note. So Azeris in Iran are far more religious, even though all Azeris are mostly Shia, right? Azeris in Azerbaijan, in the country Azerbaijan, are more secular because of the history of the Soviet experience and the Russian Empire. In Iran, they are more religious and traditional. So that's very interesting to note. Then you look down here and you see the Kurds, right? You see the Kurds, you have the big cities, Mahabad, Sanadaj, and Kermanshah. And Kermanshah is where my grandfather was born, and that's where he's from. So just in case you are wondering, since everybody always asks me where my family's from. So that's where my grandfather's from. So if you look and you see in this area here, so you have in this region, you have Lurs, right? So my grandmother is Lur. So she's from this region. She's actually from this border region here in Hamadan. She's from Malayer, that area where my father was born. So the question then becomes, wait a minute, Kurds don't actually have that much territory in Iran, like the maps that we're seeing. They have this territory here, and then also in the eastern part of the country, due to historical reasons, there's also Kurds there. So now you wonder, well, wait a minute, the map of Kurdistan that we see is enormous, and for some odd reason, they include the territory of the Lurs. Well, that's an interesting question, and that's an interesting topic, because for some Kurdish scholars, Lurs are not Kurds. For some other Kurdish scholars, Lurs are Kurds. It depends who you ask, and academia has not reached a consensus about it. There are people who are proud to be Lurs and don't identify with the broader Kurdish family, and there are Lurs who see themselves as Kurds. Because I'm half and half, it's easy. We're all the same basically anyway. We're just mountain Iranic peoples. So it's just interesting because of the language differences and also the religious differences. As you can see there, Lurs are Shia. Why Bakhtiari are not mentioned? Very interesting point somebody mentioned here. Bakhtiari technically are are part of the Lur family. That's how they're looked at in terms of academia. But there are some who put Bakhtiari separately. So it depends on who you ask and depends on the scholar. There are some very famous Kurdish scholars in the West who debate this topic. But they're there. Bakhtiaris are there, and other tribal groups within the Lur family. There are also tribal groups within the Kurdish family. So you can see the difference. Lurs are Shia. A lot of the Kurds are Sunni, and then you have some overlap of Shia Kurds in Kermanshah. You also have other, Lurs and Kurds have some equivalency historically. Some people say about 1,000 years ago. They ended up diverging in terms of how you would categorize them. But in any case, that's what the academia says on it. Okay, so with that, I want to go through, because I think that this is very, very, very important. I want to go through and talk to you all about, let's see if, do I come back on here? Oh, hold on. Whoops. Still getting acquainted here. Here we are. Now I'm back. I want to go through with you all and share the next screen, which is very interesting for us. Okay. Can all of you see this screen? So when you search for Kurdish map, you then get a variety of different maps. You don't get one standard map of Kurdistan. And that's because there is no standard map of Kurdistan. There is no general consensus about the borders of Kurdistan, about who constitutes a Kurd, about the overall historical territory, not to mention the current territory of where Kurds live. So this is very interesting, and it's a topic that I've worked on quite a bit. But you can clearly see the maps are all different. So you have a difference here. This one goes way farther. This one's a little bit more narrow here. And you can see even much fatter in this area here. You can see much skinnier here. And we're going to go take a look. Let's take a look here. So now we understand that. We understand that there's some difference. And maps are very important for the building of nationalism. So let's take a look at a map let's take a look at a map from 1946. All right. So this is a map of Kurdistan from 1946. And what's interesting about this map is that it includes who? So this is a Kurdish map, but who does it include after you looked at the map of the ethnic minorities? You can tell, if you look at the map of the ethnic minorities of Iran, you can tell who's included in this Kurdistan. Anyone? Yes, Lurs. Exactly right. In this map from the 1940s, Lurs were included in that. And you can see them there, right? You can see this, I believe, this is not in English. It's in French, I believe. So if you look here, you see up here, right? These are the Zazas, the Zazaki people. That's also a language. They are in the Darsim area. They are Alevi, and they are very close with the Alawites in Syria. They have a similar trajectory within Shia Islam, but it's a big contentious debate, so I won't get into it, right? You see here, it goes to, hold on, let me see if I can zoom in a little easier. Here we go. You see here, Kurmanji, right? Kurmanjis. So one of the Kurdish languages is Kurmanji, right? You also have Sorani. And you can see here, for example, if you go down here, so you have Mahabad, right? This is the border. You have Mahabad. You go down here, you have Kermanshah. For example, right here, you see the city here. Let me zoom in here. So where are we? Here. So this is Hamadan province, right? So here are the Lurs. And somebody was asking about the Bakhtiyars. The Bakhtiyars are here, right? They are listed here. They are actually delineated on the map. This city right here, Malaye, it's actually Malayer. That's where my father was born. So for those who are interested, that's where my family comes from. So it's very, very interesting. It's a borderland. It's a borderland between Kurds, Lurs, and Persians. So it's very fascinating. And as you can see, this map of Greater Kurdistan goes all the way to, Bandar Dilam, goes all the way to the Persian Gulf, which is very important. Now you see there, Khuzestan. Khuzestan are the Arabs. That's where the Arabs of Iran live. And those are the Arabs, like in Ahvaz there. Actually, there's been some extensive bombing in Ahvaz and Abadan, which is where the oil is, a lot of like oil and refineries and things like that. So very, very important to look here. So you see how important maps are. Maps are critical. I feel sometimes like an Indiana Jones type character, but really maps tell us a story. And they tell us a story not only of the development of nationalisms, the development of identities, but also they tell us a story about how empires and different states looked at other parts of the world, right? So that's very important. Now let's look at a more modern map here. And let me go here. Let's see. Okay. So this is a map from the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? And as you can tell here, who's not included here? All of you are wise, my beloved students. All of you are good to go. I know it. Who can say it? Who can say it? I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting. You can see clearly it does not go all the way down. It does not go all the way down to the Caspian, and it doesn't go to the Mediterranean, right? It's the Lurs, exactly. The Lurs aren't included here. So in this depiction, and probably for Encyclopedia Britannica, the Lurs are not considered Kurds. They are considered separate. That might be just academia. It could also be by a much bigger British imperial understanding, colonial understanding of the various ethnic groups, and therefore the British foreign policy. Very interesting, in my opinion. But you can clearly see, here that there is no standard definition, there is no standard cartography, there is no standard border around who are Kurds, what is Kurdistan, what are the borders of Kurdistan. And that is very important because we right now are on the precipice of starting a sectarian war where people themselves have no clue about what's going on and who's involved and what the borders are and where we're going to take and where we're going to go. So that's very important to understand. All right. I hope that this provided, it's a cursory look, but I hope it provided some level of details about what's going on here and about generally the makeup. So let's look now at some of the Kurdish groups that are basically in charge of, or that are going to be responsible for this sort of incursion, this separatist movement, if it ends up happening, right? So we have here a total of 7 groups, right? So we have PJAK right here. So the first one, PJAK, PJAK, Kurdistan Free Life Party. They are the branch of the PKK in Iran. The Kurdish part of Iran is called Rojelat Kurdistan. So Rojelat, it means eastern. So it's the eastern part of Kurdistan. You have Bakur, Bashur, Rojelat, Rojava, right? So that's north, south, east, west, Kurdistan. So you see PJAK there. So PJAK is PKK. It has a very interesting and contentious relationship with the Iranian government, sometimes allies, sometimes not, depending on who you ask and what sort of reports you see. It's been quite interesting and a real development over history as to their ebbing and flowing and waning and waxing of their relationship, especially in anti-terrorist operations against Daesh and in operations against Turkey, because Iran and Turkey are major powers in the region, and they also sometimes fight each other through proxies historically. So the Kurds have also played a role in that. Then you have the Kurdistan Freedom Party, the PAK. You have Komala, which is left-wing. Hebat, Kurdistan Struggle Organization. Another Komala, Komala's CPI, which is the Communist Party of Iran one. You have Komala of the Toilers of Kurdistan. All of those are communist in origin, but they all have now slight differences with each other. And then you have the PDKI, the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan. That is the historic party. That's the historic party that has been around since the 1940s. And we can take a look here. All of you, of course, I'm sure can look on Google, but that's the one, Qazi Muhammad, who founded it in 1945, and it played a very important role in the Republic of Mahabad, and then it went into exile. It struggled in Iran for a period of time, and then it went into its militant wing went into exile in Iraq. So those are the groups that are currently involved and have united for some sort of liberation movement. And I want to now show. We can look at one of the websites here. Sorry, let me just, okay. So we can look here, for example, this is PJAK's website. So joint statement on the new wave of repression in Kurdistan. You can see all the parties there, right? So they're talking about what they are looking for, the political prisoners, the Kurdish, the national and Kurdish movements. So that was in July of 2025. And since then, there have been other articles here. And of course, you can find, because it's PJAK, there he is. There he is. Let's zoom in. Hold on. Where we go? There he is. Everybody knows who that is on the left, not the right. On the left, that's Abdullah Öcalan, the leader of the PKK, because PJAK is the PKK branch in Iran. So very, very interesting to see here what the PJAK information space has. And of course, they have, and the flag behind it, by the way, is the KJK flag, the KCK flag, which is for the Kurdistan, the Union of Kurdistan Communities of Kurdistan. So, somebody asks a very important question. Are there any Islam-based Kurdish groups? Yes, there is Kurdish Hezbollah, right? So let me actually, we can take a look here. And I will show you this. Let me share my screen here. There it is. Kurdish Hezbollah is a Kurdish Shia Sunni Islamist militant organization active against Turkey and formally against the Kurdistan Workers' Party due to clashes that occurred between 1992 and 1995. So very, very, very interesting there that you see here. There is also a Kurdistan Hezbollah, but it's not like the Hezbollah in Lebanon, because it doesn't follow a strict Shia understanding. It's much more about Kurdish Islamic Union and Kurdish nationalism, but with Islamic characteristics, you could say. So there you go. That's for you to have there. And also lots of Kurds in other, like especially in, I would actually put up here, for those of you who are interested in broader Kurdish struggles, I would have you look up, for example, let me show you. So the killing of this man was very historic in Kurdish history, actually in Shia history as well. It's actually a mix. So this is Sayyid Riza. Sayyid Riza is a Alavi Zaza, Alavi Kurd, who lived in the Darsim region of Turkey, and he was killed. He was executed by the Turkish state by hanging. And Sayyid Riza is very important because he was both struggling for autonomy, for like national liberation, but with Shia characteristics. So when he died, he specifically spoke about Karbala. And I believe actually there should be, hold on. Where does he say? He says it here. We are the sons of Karbala. We are blameless. It is shameful. It is cruel. It is murdered, he said. We are the sons of Karbala. That's why you cannot be so monolithic about Kurds, because a lot of Kurds in the PKK are from Darsim and from that area and have Alavi roots. So a lot of them felt a kinship and a close connection to Iran because of Shia Islam. And they felt a kinship to the Alawites in Syria when we were there. And they were against the US. They were against the US and the Zionist state. So we must understand that there's a lot of complexity here. And I like easy narratives, but in this case, it's not so easy. And I know because I was on the ground and I saw it firsthand.